My name is Karl Vilacoba, and I am the Communications Director at Monmouth University's Urban Coast Institute, which is located just about a mile from the shore in West Long Branch, New Jersey. And I also serve as the project manager for the Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal. A bit about how we'll proceed today. I'll give a couple of slides with some background about who's involved with the portal, its history, how it's being used. Then we'll move on to a tour of the site with its data and tools and wrap up with a Q&A session. As I said, we're a pretty small group here today, so feel free if, as I'm going along, if there's something that you see that you have a question about right away to just holler. Um, I may not be able to see if somebody's raising their hand or write something in the chat right away. So you can come on in and just interrupt me, no problem at all. I like to often start with a presentation about the portal with an image like this, which just shows what people see when they go to the beach and they put their chair down and they stretch out and they look out at this calm, watery void for miles and miles around. But the reality is something different. The, the ocean, and especially here in the mid-Atlantic, is a very, very busy place, and it's getting busier all the time. We have a couple of the busiest ports in all of America with New York and New Jersey, and then Philadelphia and Hampton Roads down to the south, Virginia. We are kind of a nexus point of undersea cables in America. We've got a thriving commercial fishing industry, lots of recreational boating. For the first time, we've got these freestanding structures coming into the ocean in places with offshore wind. And what the portal does is help people see how all of these things relate to each other and in some cases conflict with one another so that people who are in ocean management roles can make better informed decisions. What's on the portal? Currently about 6,000 or more map layers organized in about a dozen themes. We have long range data, I should say, that's focused on ocean areas, primarily from the beach on out, but also in some of the major estuaries, the Chesapeake Bay, Barnegat Bay, Long Island Sound, et cetera, depending on the need and the data set. But I would just contrast that with a tool like, say, Marico's Oceans Map, which is real time. We are really focused on long range planning. And as you'll see, we have a lot of tools for users to share groups and collaborate or share maps and collaborate together on projects in groups. And a lot of instructional and educational resources like a portal blog, ocean stories, calendars, and I'll walk through some of those things quickly for you. The portal is currently maintained by a team consisting of where I sit, the Monmouth University Urban Coast Institute, Rutgers, Duke University, which handles our marine life data for the most part, New York State Department of State, our developer EcoTrust out in Portland, Oregon, and we work under the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Ocean, or MARCO. If you're not familiar, MARCO it's a regional ocean partnership. It was established by the governors of the 5 mid-Atlantic states, which we would define as New York down through Virginia, to work on ocean issues about 15, 16 years ago. And it is currently chaired by Maryland. One of the things that we did with the portal from the outset is take a lot of data that was housed in several government agencies at all levels, curating it for what is of most interest and use for the Mid-Atlantic and brought it under one umbrella. So we take, for example, a lot of baseline information from the Marine Cadastre, which is kind of a federal level portal. There is a counterpart of ours to the north in New England, NROC. And we develop a lot of our major data sets in partnership with them, understanding that fish don't know where the Mid-Atlantic begins and the Northeast ends, and neither do currents or oil spills or anything else. So there is a lot of reason for us to work very closely and collaborate on creating some of those products. In some cases, we ingest data from state portals from the states that have them, and they take a lot of data from us. A few examples of how it's used. Offshore infrastructure, certainly over the last several years, offshore wind has been a major driver of the data that we've added to the portal, giving people what they need to do their analysis and figure out where offshore wind can go or shouldn't go, depending on your perspective, to keep it out of the way of really important commercial fishing grounds or shipping lanes or any other uses that might be of importance, and giving people a tool to, when there's public comment periods on these things, help illustrate their points using maps. Another one, submarine cables. A lot of people might assume that in this day and age, where everything is wireless, that that's a thing of the past, but they're actually more important than ever because they carry high-speed internet from here to Europe to Africa and South America even. And the Mid-Atlantic is a very kind of hot spot for that. And we're seeing lately, for example, a lot of cables being added for the first time landing in Virginia Beach, where the portal was used to help design those alignments to steer clear of some of these areas where there's anchorages coming in and out of the port, or places where the Navy is doing trainings, or bottom tending fishing gear goes and could pose an expensive hazard to getting snagged on the line. The Coast Guard has been a major user, doing, for example, its port access route studies of the last few years, which have tried to look forward and figure out where shipping lanes should go, where new anchorage areas might go, in light of changes to the ports, in light of current plans for offshore wind and so forth, and how they can still safely and efficiently carry shipping back and forth through these areas without being impeded. The proposed Hudson Canyon National Marine Sanctuary, the portal has been used for in a lot of ways around this, for educational purposes by its advocates, by the Sanctuary Advisory Council. They're using it to help learn more about the canyon area and perhaps design some of the proposals for where that area might go when they come out. And we're real happy to see it used that way. One use that we didn't necessarily see when we set out with this project was education, but it's being used more and more as a classroom tool, and we want to certainly encourage that. And you can see that snapshot down there. It shows one of our groups where, in this case, we have partnered with the Wildlife Conservation Society and the New York Aquarium to do teacher trainings at the aquarium once a year or so, where they then bring it back to their marine science classes or social studies classes in New York City and use it there. And certainly anyone who would have an interest in us doing a training for, a public event like that, or even for people who you work with that you'd like to do a portal orientation, we're certainly always open for that. Last thing I'll just mention before I jump into the portal, we did recently, for the first time, release a mobile app version, which is basically a stripped down version of Marine Planner, just the mapping application, so that when you're on the run, when you're on a boat, when you're on the beach, you can quickly call up maps and take a look at them on your phone. And it solves a problem with, as complicated as the portal's web app is, it never really translated well to mobile, and now you can. So I'll put this up at the end of my presentation in case you want to get a hold of me. But for now, let's move on to the portal. So here is the portal's homepage. It's portal.midatlanticocean.org. And if you want to pull it up for yourselves and follow along, that's great too. Before I jump into our map application, which we call Marine Planner, I'll point out a few things. Up here, this blog under our news heading. This is a great place to be if you are a frequent user and just want to keep an eye on what new tools and data have come out. And you can click on any of them and it'll give you a summary, links, tell you a bit about where this data came from, what it means, how to use it. Ocean Stories, kind of our homemade digital magazine meets story map application. And you can find things like this one, which takes a look at an expedition to some of the lesser seen canyons in the mid-Atlantic. And what you can see is up top, there is this map up there that as you scroll down will change to help kind of tell the story. And the story will help explain what you're seeing in the map. So it's a pretty neat interchange right there. We have a calendar page where you can find out about webinars like this, upcoming meetings. If you have anything that you'd like us to post on there that would be of interest to people who are in ocean planning or our users generally, feel free to send them to us. Our current agency actions page, a good place to keep an eye on public notices that have come up for the Mid-Atlantic, especially things that we have maps to help explain. So you can see this one here, the District 1 Coastal Buoy Modernization Initiative, where the Coast Guard has a proposal to discontinue certain buoys, and they wanted feedback on it. And you can look at a map on the portal and help see where those are. You can have a link here to the Federal Register notice, which will tell you what to do to give that feedback. And then last, under this help tab, using the portal, you may see something that I do here, and then a couple of days from now, wonder, how did he do that again? And you can always come here and find, I'll put a link to this webinar. There is tutorial content, whether it be a short video clip or a diagram or a blog or something like that, where you can get that tutorial. And with that, I'll jump into Marine Planner. By default, you have this ocean map here, but on the bottom right, you have other options if you wanted to do a satellite view or a street map view, or just do an all gray. Sometimes it's just easy to do something like that if you're trying to show a better contrast, depending on the map colors. And on the left here are those themes that I mentioned. The first one being administrative, which is basically government boundaries. So I'll click a few different things on here. And once you do, you can click on any one or as many as you want maps at the same time. And then you go to the active tab here, where this little green eye for information icon you can click on for a explanation of what that is. And then it gives you some options to download the data. We do view this primarily as a public information effort and want to, as much as possible, make all of our stuff downloadable so that if you have your own GIS capabilities, you can use it. Metadata, the source, and you can do this click more, which will give you a direct link to our data catalog pages for each of these layers. So for example, this one, here's the NIMS fishery regions. You've got these different links, this full explanation tiles here where it is basically the URL for that service. So if you can ingest it yourself, you're welcome to do that. And you can manipulate how everything looks. So for example, if you wanted to put one of these on the bottom, you can do that. If you wanted to mute it, you can do that. If you wanted to make something look darker or lighter, you can do that. You can X them out one at a time, or just hit clear all layers if you want to start fresh. And you can always also just click the map up there to get yourself fresh as well. Conservation, essentially looking at areas that have some kind of a preservation status or conservation status to them. Things like the marine sanctuaries throughout the region and in the area. So you can see one here. Click on it. That is the Mallows Bay Potomac River Sanctuary. Gives you a little information about the acreage, square miles. And I'll close out of those. The next theme would be fishing. A lot of stuff in here. We are in the process of rearranging this to do it by fishery instead of kind of how we have it now, which is by the data type. So VMS is vessel monitoring system, essentially electronic tracking of all vessels. Think of it like an easy pass that pings the satellite periodically, and we would take all of that positional data and put these sort of averages to show what the patterns are and where people are fishing by catch type in this case. And in some cases, you can see slow traffic if you want. We've done that just to really try and zero in on where the actual fishing activity is versus these other ones that would show transit activity as well.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
How often, because this is a curiosity of mine, like if you're getting data, and this sounds like you're getting data like quite frequently, at least multiple times a day, how often do you all update? Or is
So
it automatic?
that's a great question. For whenever possible, we like to tie directly into the services that are produced by the data holder. That way, any updates that they make will come through to us instantly. Saves us work, makes sure that we're completely up to date. So for as an example of that, let's say there is something like like a BOEM wind planning areas layer that has updates to it or something like that. And they put a new area there. We would get that right away. Something like these VMS ones, these are ones that we produce ourselves, relying on NOAA data that we can only get periodically. It takes a while. So we'll do these every couple of years. So it really
Okay.
all depends on the particular data set. Some of them are more urgent than others. Some of them, it's just harder to get the data quicker than others. And so it really is kind of that need versus availability and all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. VTR, that's vessel trip reports that are filled out by the captains. These are also by gear type. And people call these our communities at sea because you can click on any of them for a pop-up that shows essentially which fishing communities relied on that particular area at sea. So dredge, you're going to get a lot of, in this case, scallop, surf clam, ocean quahog. You can actually click, you can see the ports for these year ranges and click on any of them to tell you some economic activity data, the total fisher days, the percentage of trips that came from that port for that whole gear type in that time window. So people have really found those very useful over time. We also have this one that shows by port. So I just showed you, for example, that 2011 through 15 dredge for the whole region. What if you wanted to just see one of these ports? So you see here Barnegat. You can type that in. And this shows where 90% of the level of effort went in that time range. If you just wanted to really look at any specific port for your project. Scrolling down to habitat, lots of just great habitat data here, including for the seafloor. We have the bathymetry data here, including this new NOAA Blue Topo data, which is pretty amazing. Great level of detail. You can zoom in and get that sense of depth and features on the seafloor. So this here, you're looking at an artificial reef not far from the Jersey coast. And you can see all these like sunken ships and rail cars and whatnot that are all in that area. Of use for mariners, of use for fishing, all kinds of things. Marine life. So we've kind of got this divided like we did with the fishing, where that was all kind of a regional set versus the individual by ports. We have this for the larger kind of categories, and then we have a marine life library, which has the species. I mentioned we have 6,000 different map layers on the portal. A good half of them are in this marine life library here, just species stuff. So for example, we have fish, birds, marine mammals. Let's say you were interested in looking at all cetaceans or all baleen whales abundance. I'll zoom out to give that full-on regional look. This models it for the whole year, but maybe you're interested in looking at just where humpbacks go. And as you start to type that, you get this full list of options. It is June now, World Ocean Month. Where are they generally? And you can see. And if you were to look at the January one, you would see that they've moved a bit further south, versus if you were to look at the hottest months of the year, you see that they've moved up north to the cooler water. So you can get that sense of their migration, the time periods, all of that. But the marine mammal, or the marine life, I should say, theme has lots of great stuff. Sea turtles, shellfish, zooplankton. We have this pretty cool one, sea turtle density. It's a monthly slider. So we have these for certain data sets where you can manually toggle through the months or the seasons, depending on it, or automatically animate it to get that sense of migration, time periods, all of that. So we'll go with loggerheads, and I'll just click to animate it. You can see how it moves. That's generally faster, but this computer I'm on is a bit slow, unfortunately. But you get the sense of it, hopefully. Moving on to maritime, lots of our human use data, AIS. So we'll take kind of like the VMS is, where it's pings to the landside infrastructure that share position data of different kinds of ships. And you can look at every year for over a decade now, looking at all vessel transit counts. And you can see some of the individual patterns that you'll see in a given year. So that triangle right there, obviously there were people out there surveying or doing construction related to that offshore wind project. You can look at cargo vessels or passenger, tug and tow, sailboat. We also have the monthly sliders available for them to get that sense of how it changes throughout the year. Also in this theme, everything from ferry data to some of the Coast Guard proposals, like that. Here's that one with the buoy discontinuation candidates. You can click on any of them for a pop-up that tells you a bit more about it, and the public comment close on it and so forth. Oceanography, pretty much a lot of data here showing the physical characteristics of the ocean and climate and wave data and those kinds of things. Something like this Maricou's bottom temperature monthly slider. So this is a great illustration of our partnership with Maricou's, and the differences between the kinds of data that we serve and they do. So you could go to the Maricou's oceans map to find out what is the temperature of the ocean right now. We would work with them to get that sense of the bottom temps over the course of the year and create this average that shows what the temperatures are in the summer, in the winter, and so on. Also, I find that this is a pretty cool and useful layer for simulating the cold pool, if you're familiar with that. And if you were to line up certain of like the dredge fishing layers, you'd see a very interesting overlap right between them, because that's where all the scallops and shellfish like to especially hang out. Recreation, a lot of data that we've done through surveys and partnerships with different organizations like Surfrider, stuff like this one, the NJDEP Prime Fishing Grounds, or ones that we did like the commercial whale and dolphin watch areas, where we took AIS data for all of the major vessels that do this every day to try to create a map that simulated this, then collaborated with the actual operators from Maine down through Virginia to kind of truth squad that data and come up with this that shows what we would call the dominant areas where they spend the most of their time, general areas where it depends on day to day where sightings are, and then the supplemental areas, which they'll go to once in a while, out to the canyons or something like that, for seasonal trips. Renewable energy, this is where all of the offshore wind data is, the planning and lease areas, which you can find. A lot of individual stuff. We sort of have these arranged in 4 folders, which go from least to furthest along. So these are the planning and lease areas. We have projects that are under review, projects that have received permits and may be under construction, and then those that are actually out there and in operation and producing electricity at sea. So for example, we'll turn on these CVAL ones off of the coast of Virginia. You can see the cable, but then we also have in the projects under review some of the infrastructure. If you wanted to see the proposed areas where the turbines will actually go, the interconnections of cables between them, and so forth. And that is pretty much for anything that is publicly available at the moment. I do see there were something in the chat. Okay. If anyone does have anything that you need me to answer right away, feel free to just interrupt, as I said. So security data, a lot of declassified naval data here, including areas that have some kinds of restrictions to them, areas where there's unexploded bombs that were deposited in World War II or other times. Socioeconomic, some data here showing the importance of the ocean to our economy, like this ocean economics GDP one, which is taken from NOAA ENOW data. And you can click on any county for a pop-up that tells you, according to census data, the amount of wages and establishments that are directly dependent on the ocean. And then finally, water quality, which is like it sounds. We have stuff here like EPA no discharge zones, areas that show where there's waste outfall pipes and gives you a sense of the amount of flow. that comes out of them. And you can click for a pop-up with information on that. A lot of the big ones that you see tend to be power plants that what they're discharging, they're using the water to cool their machinery and then pumping it back out into the waters. So now a quick look at some of the advanced tools that we have. We've got this print export tool if you want to print a map and have it look clean, or export one as a PDF. We've got this short URL tool or an embed map. If you have the ability to put a map on your own website, you can do that. We've got this linear measurement tool. If you just need a quick measurement in miles, kilometers, or nautical miles about how far it is from A to B on the map. One thing I didn't show here is My Planner, which is, these are some options for people who are registered portal users. Everything I've shown up till now, you could just come in. You don't need to be signed in or anything. All you need is an email and just signing up free, obviously. But you have the ability to do bookmarks. So let's say I wanted to save this map. I could go ahead and say water treatment, add that bookmark. And now anytime you're coming into the portal, you can go to that bookmark, scroll down, and it'll take you even right to the zoom level showing that. You may also want to share that data in a group. You have some options. Clicking this little sprocket here, I will show under here the groups. You can create your own group here, give it any name, make it public, make it private if you like. And basically, as you can see, people are using these for homework assignments. They're using them for projects that they're working on. If you have coworkers and you want to avoid just sending yourselves a million different emails with links, you can just deposit them all in this one place and share your bookmarks to them, or share these other options that you have here to build shapes. So, and here's a quick link to it. This tool allows you to draw a polygon, draw lines, add points, or if you have your own GIS files, like a shape file, you can actually upload those and save them to the portal and share them in a group or bookmark them if you like. So it's pretty cool and a way to really do some advanced GIS work without needing to make any investment in that kind of software yourselves. The last tool I'll mention down here is this user imported layers. So if there's something that we don't have on the portal, whether it's something you own or it's on another government agency, you have the ability to actually bring that in. So for example, here is one intermodal freight rail facilities. If you wanted to take this US DOT one and bring it in so that you can see, for example, where there are freight rail stops that intersect with shipping. All you have to do is copy this URL, paste it in, choose the service type. It is, as you can see here, feature service. And the layer name, if you look at it, it was a 0 for the layer ID. Type that in. And give it a name. You have the option if you want to put some notes about it. And now you'll start to see them import. I'll use the satellite one because they're a little bit light. And I'll get rid of those others. Actually, I'll go to the gray here. Maybe that would be easier to see everything. I'll turn it up a bit. Yeah, and now you can see there's a big cluster of them up here by New York, Elizabeth, Newark area. And let's say I wanted to turn that on and see where are the intersections between cargo vessels and tankers. Click those layers. And yeah, you can definitely see some interaction between some of these ports where there's rail and the facilities. And I think I'll stop there. I've said a lot. You might have some questions of your own. And yeah, I'll open it up to anything you might have that you're wondering about. Anything I haven't seen or you haven't seen that you're wondering if we have, or something confusing.
Hey, Carl, that was great. That was, I definitely saw some tools that I wasn't aware of. Um, I was wondering if you have a climatology of sturgeon occurrence in the Delaware Bay.
Can you repeat again?
I wonder if you have sturgeon occurrence in the Delaware Bay or model for that. Because I'm
Yeah.
aware of, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So what we have for sturgeon at the moment, if you go to the marine life for the species data
Hmm.
and go to the fish biomass, type in sturgeon, you'll start to see some options.
Hmm.
For our fish data at the moment is all like the NOAA trawls, it's fall or spring. And so
Trawls, okay.
observed
Hmm.
biomass, or we can do, you have the interpolated ones, which really give that sense. However, this data is federal, so you can see where it stops at the state lines and does not come into Delaware Bay. But what we are doing right now is working with um, uh, the states and with Duke and with the ASFMC and the fishery councils, and coming up with kind of an equivalent that's going to be near shore and in the estuaries.
Hmm.
Hopefully that is moving along now, and I think you'll see that this summer.
Oh, excellent. Um, yeah, because I was going to mention, I know that the University of Delaware has a sturgeon prediction model for the Delaware Bay, if that's something you'd be interested to incorporate as well.
Quite possibly. I know I did see a presentation about that not long ago at the
Hmm.
Ocean Forum.
I saw the same one, yeah.
Eric was there. Very interesting, and I'm sure we'll be talking with them. I kind of alluded to it earlier, but we have an agreement with them where they are members of our tech team, and we do data sharing and try to kind of every year take a look at the products that they have and see where we can produce things that make sense. So certainly maybe taking some of that data that they've got in real time and gathered over time, we could bolster what we have and do something like this.
Hmm. So it seems like most of your animal data is from occurrence rather than models then?
Well, modeled on occurrence, so
Hmm.
modeled on trawls and
Hmm.
that kind of thing. I'll also point out we haven't even announced this yet, so this is something that you're just seeing here. In fact, where did I put it? Yes, National Marine Fisheries Critical Habitat could also be of use for you. So they have the habitat lines, which are sturgeon pretty much in the mid-Atlantic, and the habitat areas. And this
Okay,
is,
awesome. Yeah, I'll check that out.
so as you can see, certainly Delaware River is right there. Um, Hudson River, some of these others. Yeah, so we just last week added these and are about to announce them in the coming days.
All right, awesome. Thanks. I think that's the questions I had. So thanks for the introduction.
Hi, Carl. I have a couple too.
Sure.
So everything you showed is observations. Is that correct? There's no modeling data on here?
Um, all of this, what we call our MDAT, the Marine Data and Analysis Team, which is Duke. So this stuff here that you see in the Marine Life Library are really models, you know, based on observations by trawls, by transects, et cetera,
Okay.
and averaged over many, many years.
Okay. So, okay, that makes sense. Um, so then are you able to see, um, like I remember you had the months in the calendar year with species data. Are you able to see where they are like in June? Well, no, you showed that with the whales.
Yes, so we have monthly for birds and marine mammals, and we have seasonal right now for fish.
Okay.
And by seasonal, that's spring and fall for that stuff in the Marine Life Library. Now,
Okay.
if you browse through here, there are other products that are not produced through that Duke effort, which are different
Uh-huh.
and may have different seasonal occurrence to them. So, for example, got the zooplankton here, or we've got a lot of um, strandings data. And if you wanted to just look at by species or group, you could also look at it by season.
Hmm. Okay.
So a little bit
Mhm.
different NOAA office that we took this data to create the maps from. We need to update this, but this became of real high interest a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
trying to spot patterns and get the history of it.
Okay. And another question, do you know if folks are, I mean, I would think that people are using this to help with their research and then publishing papers. Um, do you know if that's happening? And is there somewhere on the website like where you would uh, have the citation? And if someone's doing that, do you want them to let you know they're doing it? Is there like a page of active projects using the portal, or I'm just curious.
So there definitely have been many studies that have cited the portal, and I get that question once in a while about the proper way to do the citation. We've talked about it with the team and never developed any specific way to do it. I think as long as you're linking to the portal, that's great. You may also want to look at the metadata for the specific layer to see if that deserves any particular kinds of credits. I would definitely recommend that,
Mm-hmm.
especially with this marine life data. That is all published and peer reviewed, and so they have citations of their own that the Duke team does. And we don't have like a list of this on our site. We do have a case studies page under have it actually under help, just as kind of a way for people to think about different ways the portal is used, where there are some presentations people have given about how they use the portal, some fact sheets that we've done about different ways. We don't update it super much, but it gives a little bit of a picture anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I think, yeah, the third question there was, do we want to know when that happens? Oh, certainly. It's always great to hear how people are using the portal. It helps us prioritize things too when we're doing our work plans and thinking through what kinds of things would be most useful for them. And certainly I would turn that question to both of you. If there's anything that we don't have that you would really love to see or would find useful, things you know of out there that we might consider adding, we're always open to our users and whatever we can do to help it make it better for you.
Okay. One other thing, I was just looking on the website to get more information. So I'm trying to, I guess, figure out the overlap or not with like NOAA's tools. Is there any, and also organization wide? So Marco is really just this regional alliance of the different groups that you mentioned. Does NOAA come into play or
They
there?
do.
Okay.
They have been a funder of the portal on and off through the years for certain projects and pieces of it. We work very closely with them. We have a standing monthly call with NCOS. We have had standing monthly calls or so with the Marine Cadastre Group in the past. NOAA has a lot of different tools that are deep and rich and dedicated to specific purposes. We try to, as I showed in that one slide at the beginning, really take the stuff that is of the greatest link to ocean planning and to the mid-Atlantic and bring that in. You know, the Marine Cadastre is really deep, but they have stuff on there about Hawaiian whales, which would have no bearing on us and that we would leave alone. So we're really, as we look at these NOAA tools, trying to figure out which pieces of them, which data sets within them make the most sense for us at all times, um, and kind of should make that cut. And in a lot of cases, we'll kind of use our having them on the site and the announcements we do and so forth to point people toward those tools so that they can get the full unvarnished data that they need. You know, it might be a NOAA tool that has all kinds of hundreds and hundreds of fish species, including ones that didn't really make sense for us, but we want people to know that that's out there and help drive traffic to that because we certainly appreciate all of the work they did in developing it.
Okay. And one more question, I think, because I keep thinking of these questions as you answer mine. Is there a similar tool in other regions? So instead of, Mid-Atlantic, is there a Southern Atlantic or West Coast tool like this?
There are, and they are in different stages of development. Some are further along than others. I would point to NROC, the Northeast portal,
Uh-huh.
as certainly very far advanced, like the Mid-Atlantics. They've been at it for a long time. Started around the same time as us. And by the way, I should mention to you, this started as a TNC developed tool out of the Nature Conservancy in Virginia. It was initially seeded with Virginia CZM funding back in 2009 or 10 or so, and was a much smaller deal, what you might call the Portal 1.0, started by people like Jay Odell and Chris Bruce, if you know them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and Jay is still on our tech team. So TNC has been a member of our tech team on and off for many years. Um, and they've been awesome and just contributed so much to this, including founding it. But around that same time, the Northeast did theirs. But this portal, I would say, has been a catalyzing thing for Marco, from what I understand. And I joined in 2015, so I just hear it from the people who were there at the beginning that a lot of the states at that point said, you know what, this really would make a lot of sense if we all jumped in, approached this as a regional product, and applied our efforts to it as a group. And certainly Marco has a lot of different hands. Christy Liskey was mentioned earlier. She is a member of our steering committee, you could say, our work group that steers the portal, the OMDT. And so that the states are very hands-on and we listen to them about how they use it, what they need, what they're hearing, and it's great. I'll also mention our developer EcoTrust is also the developer for the West Coast data portal for WCOA. That one goes from California right on up the full coast through Washington State. That one has been on again, off again. And so they're on again at this point and really trying to make some progress on it. It's a great thing because any code type of improvements that they make, we get to share and vice versa. So we really help each other in that way, just by anything that we do helps advance them and vice versa.
Okay, thank you. That helps a lot. So Chris was the GIS person for Virginia when he did this, and I wasn't here yet, but I worked with Chris really closely until he moved up to our global division. But this helps a lot in understanding, because the way people have talked about Marco within the organization, I thought it sort of started with the TNC thing, but then I never really got, and somehow Noah was in there. So this really helps me. Thank you.
And Chris and TNC, for example, they developed a lot of stuff like these fish species through time layers. I think this was Virginia CZM funded,
Okay.
and there's other stuff that Chris and TNC did, like in our habitat theme that he originally did way back when, but then updated as part of that wind tool that TNC created. So for example, the seabeds and sediment drop down here, like seabed forms. That is a TNC layer. Soft sediments is another. So certainly TNC has been a super important contributor and partner on this throughout the years.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Real quick, since you brought up the seabeds and sediments one, I assume you're aware of the potential shelf mining lease areas opening up. Are there layers of like mineral deposits as well? Do you have data on that?
Nothing that specifically calls out mineral deposits. We have a lot of stuff that characterizes the seafloor and helps show what's down there, including, for example, this is some of our newest stuff, these surficial substrates. So the probability of cobble, probability of gravel, mud, rock, sand, and shell debris. I will also say around that, there is a great deal of interest by Marco right now on this subject and seafloor mapping in general, that your office will probably be involved in the coming months. More to come of it. So yeah, I'll just leave that there for now, but it's definitely a high priority for us to expand our data that we have that shows what's down there.
And I also really loved that tool you showed with the like Federal Register announcements and helpful maps to go with those. That'll be really helpful, I think, for us.
Great. And certainly, if there's anything that you know of that we should add to that, for the most part, I'm relying on people within the Marco realm to let us know when there's something to put there. I monitor the Federal Register a little bit, but if there's something that you know of, whether it be a state matter, federal, and you think should be on there, definitely let us know. And,
okay, awesome. Yep.
And you can always get a hold of us, by the way. This email down here at the bottom, portal@midatlanticocean.org. that comes to me and one other person who works on the portal. And I do promise that if you send to that, we'll get back to you right away. Also, if there's just something that you notice a problem with a service that's out or something like that, this little orange provide feedback form that will let us know, and we can look into it and fix it as fast as we can.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I think I'm gonna jump off, but this was super helpful. So yeah, I appreciate all the work you're doing on it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
All right, then, with that, thank you again for coming. Great questions. Feel free to reach out to us anytime with any questions or needs that you have, and really appreciate you coming.
All right,
Thanks
thanks so much.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.